is unconstitutional. Chairman Bobo.
Kicked out. Opponents of Mayor Jimenez are ejected from a Miami-Dade Commission meeting. What did they want?
Will win that particular case.
See you in court. The president answers a legal setback with promises of another order on immigration.
Travailler à la grandeur de la patrie.
Sworn in, Haiti finally gets a new president. Can he turn the country around? We will take that to the roundtable.
Good morning. Once again this week, the wrangling over who can stay and who must go takes center stage nationally and locally.
Anxiety is mounting here in South Florida over the president's immigration ban and his order on sanctuary cities.
A loud and determined group of Miami-Dade residents tried to voice their objections this week at a county commission meeting, but Commission Chair Steve Bovo said the subject was not on the agenda.
And when members of that group persisted, their leaders were thrown out of the meeting. Bovo said they will have a chance to speak at a special meeting on the sanctuary city question next Friday.
Let's talk about that with Juan Cuba of Miami, a leader of that group that was kicked out of the meeting. He is the chairman of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party. And Sally Heyman, a veteran Miami-Dade commissioner whose resolution in 2013 ended the county's cooperation with federal immigration authorities on those jail holds. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Great to have you come in. So Juan Cuba, you were not allowed to say what you wanted to say. What did you want to tell Commissioner Chairman Bovo and Commissioner Heyman and the county?
Well, first, as residents, we have a right under the Constitution and Florida statute to speak to our elected officials. We have a right under county policy to speak on any item that's on the agenda. And we were doing just that. It was about criminalizing young people and tremendous impact to the undocumented community. Over 150,000 people that are undocumented, many of them young people, many of them living in fear under the Trump-Jimenez policy. And that's what we wanted to talk about. And what Chair Bovo did, I think, was a violation of our rights, and censuring us from using the words immigrant and undocumented was just wrong.
Well, with the chair not here to defend himself, I feel like we should be in a position just to raise the question. I think he did make it pretty clear that he wanted to stick to an agenda for the meeting, and there is a meeting coming up on Friday at which he invited you to do all of the things and say all the things you wanted to say. Does he have the right and the ability to govern and keep control of his own meeting?
Well, Glenna, look, we were speaking to an item that was on the agenda. But second, look, I can wait until the 17th, and I'm sure Chair Bovo can wait, but there are thousands of people in Miami-Dade that can't wait. Mayor Jimenez came on the show last week and pulled out his phone and started listing 27 detainers in 9 days. It started listing a group of offenses, some of them minor. That's 5 people.
But some of them were very serious,
but
including murder, aggravated assault. I mean, these are people who are being held in Miami-Dade County jails
Michael,
who ICE wants.
2 of them were for petty theft. 2 were for resisting without violence. Another was for disorderly conduct. So some of them were also minor. So these are 5 people, minor offenses, who are now, there's 5 families that are going through immeasurable pain right now and wondering how they're going to be separated from their families. In another 10 days is another 5 families and more.
You know, I think it's worth to say that the mayor, Jimenez, was here last week, and to his point, we don't know why the federal agents asked for the hold. We don't know what the federal crime or if there was one for each of these people, and why ICE would have asked for the detainers. But Commissioner Heyman, you wrote and sponsored the 2013 resolution that stopped the county from honoring these detainer requests, and if I remember, it was a financial decision, was it not?
Minor correction. I was a co-sponsor with my colleague Jean Monastine addressing immigration holds. We never stopped them. And that's what needs to be communicated to the public, and basically was elevated to a misunderstanding by the mayor's initial statement that says we will detain to comply with the executive order. We have always abided by the federal law on the federal detention orders. We had a price tag we put in because as much as we're concerned about public safety and human rights, we also have an obligation to the taxpayers, and we were footing a heavy bill and figured this will discourage the federal government from laying it on us.
To put it out just succinctly, a lot of these people whom ICE wanted the county to hold after they had either served their sentences or had been bonded out.
Yes.
the cost of keeping them in a county jail facility was being absorbed by Miami-Dade County, and you wanted the feds to pay that amount, and they were not.
Right, and so we actually thought it would discourage, which it did. We went from an average of 1,200, 1,600 down to 300 to 400 a day, and then when we started charging or releasing, it was down to 174. That's substantial.
Were they asking for people who had committed forcible assaults, who had, I mean, serious felonies? We're not talking about people who get stopped for a burned out taillight. We're talking about serious crimes then.
That's what we put in our language, that said they had to have a previous incident or a non-bondable offense. And so we set that criteria under 108-13.
And Juan, was that not a fair criteria?
Well, Commissioner, what the mayor's memo says is to honor all detainer requests, all detainers. And as Commissioner just mentioned, that under the 2013 policy, even if ICE paid for the detention, we would only honor those requests that dealt with violent felonies. And
well, is that, excuse me, is that true? Prior to 2013, 2012, 2011, there were 2,500 of those ICE detainees honored by the county. Were those only felony crimes, or were those every single request?
No, it fell to virtually everybody. What we have now under 2013 and looking to amend, hopefully on Friday, is certain criteria. But the big challenge is it needs to be addressed in the courts. This is a constitutional issue because we've never had criteria set by the federal government that says only with a judicial order or a warrant. And so in my opinion, just in mine, and I'll speak it on Friday again, in addition to my language, is it violates the constitutional rights of these men and women under the 4th and 14th Amendment. And then the threat of losing money if we don't comply with the executive order it almost extorts us under the 10th Amendment.
I hate to get too legally wonky in my question, but if they're undocumented citizens, are they covered by the 14th Amendment?
I believe all citizens here in America are, whether they're natural patriots, whether they're naturalized patriots, or whether they're visitors. I think it's a human rights issue, and I think that's the basis of our Constitution.
Well, the courts, and forgive me, I obviously am not a lawyer, but one, you know, the courts have said anybody who's undocumented in this country still has due process rights.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now, let me ask you, you are part of, you are the chair of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party, but there's a whole list of community groups and activists and the SEIU that you are part of, and you're saying that the mayor, you said in a news release, the mayor has betrayed Miami-Dade's immigrant community. How did he betray the community?
Well, look, I think the mayor made a rush to judgment, and I think he made a big mistake. I think he's dug in his heels and doesn't want to admit that he was wrong, but he made
Where's the betrayal?
Well, we were in compliance with the current
I mean, under the
executive
resolution from 2013?
Yes, he shouldn't have jumped the gun and said that, directed the memo that would honor all detainer requests in direct contradiction to a county commission policy, putting 150,000 people in South Florida who are undocumented at risk, a higher risk of deportation. This impacts not just them, but our friends and neighbors and coworkers. It's the entire community that's impacted. And where does he get the authority to make a unilateral decision like this when the county commission has established policy? There's no written legal opinion by the county attorney that I've seen, because I've made a public records request, and he hasn't clearly explained to the public where this authority comes from.
Commissioner, is that a thing? I mean, can the mayor directly turn over a resolution without, does he have the power to do that?
I wouldn't go to the term turnover resolution, but if you look at the language of that resolution, and we have a strong mayor, it specifically gives the mayor or the mayor's designee the discretion to direct the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and that's what he did in his order.
At the same time, he reversed a resolution passed by you and your fellow county commissioners without consulting you or anybody else, as far as we know.
Yes.
He did.
To that answer. However, based on the situation, He does have authority on previous resolutions or even an ordinance where the body of the commission gave the strong manager at the time, then the strong mayor at the time, authority to act on an emergency. He determined the consequence of being adverse to President Trump. You know, I can only speak from the response I got from him, was immediate to try and get us off because the consequences to Miami-Dade County of such a significant
possible
far-spread
loss of
money.
hundreds of millions of dollars.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think that it was an emergency. If it was an emergency, why didn't the commission take it up on the 7th? Why didn't the mayor do an executive session and get input from the commission? It wasn't an emergency. He shouldn't have rushed. Why are we the ones asked to wait when the mayor should have waited? To get input from the commission, to get input from the community, and to get a legal opinion from the county attorney.
All right, hold your thoughts. We are going to come back, speak more with Juan Cuba and with Commissioner Sally Heyman. Stay with us.
We are back talking about Miami-Dade's possible maybe designation as a sanctuary city and what the county is about to do with it, with Commissioner Sally Heyman, with Juan Cuba, who is the head of Miami-Dade's Democratic Party. But for this discussion, the one who was leading the group that got kicked out of the commission meeting this week for attempting to talk about that. Commissioner, you will be at Friday sponsoring a new and improved resolution, we suppose, about how to handle the detainers, the jail requests. How is this resolution changed from the one in 2013?
Well, first of all, people asked, would you affirm previous versus amend? The bottom line is, till the courts accept a challenge for constitutionality of how they do ICE holds, ICE requests, ICE detains, and that's where it needs to be decided. One, we're going to stop charging locally for the amount of money we get, and that's one of the genesis of the 2013 that put us on the sanctuary list. My position is, and it's affirmed in my proposed resolution, don't label us. We're not a sanctuary city, county, or jurisdiction. It has never been defined. It has never been classified by black letter law. So don't label us for something with an adverse consequence to all of our community.
Well, our understanding was that if there is a definition for sanctuary city, it was a city that is protecting its undocumented citizens by not sharing information with the federal government, which clearly Miami-Dade does not apply.
True. If you look at the old definition under what the Office of Inspector General at the federal level did in February 2016, that was a definition. We were in compliance. If you look at the new executive order from President Trump, he tells Secretary Kelly, head of DHS, to define what the sanctuary jurisdiction is, and then Attorney General Sessions to punish those by taking away federal funds.
And
so I say not defined.
Yeah, the argument that the mayor made last week, has made before elsewhere, is that Miami-Dade County risks losing at least $355 million in federal grant money, other funds that come from Washington, if the county doesn't comply with this provision and hold these inmates for 48 hours. He says he's not anti-immigrant. He indeed is an immigrant, was born in Cuba. So you don't buy that argument?
No, I think Donald Trump was an empty threat that he made. I think Commissioner, while we don't have a legal and federal definition of sanctuary city, Miami has always been a sanctuary for immigrants. It's in the fabric of who we are. We should say so proudly. We should join other cities like Philadelphia, New York, and Chicago, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the Major Cities Police Chiefs Association, in standing with immigrants and opposing Trump's executive order. On the money side, with the $350 million in federal funds, the courts have already struck down a similar thing when President Obama tried to withhold Medicaid money from states that didn't want to expand Medicaid. The courts would have struck it down, and it's unenforceable. He wouldn't have been able to enforce it.
Well,
that's why other cities
that would be determined in court. It would play out over a long amount of time. Commissioner, talking about going to court, before Friday, do you think the ACLU or any other of these groups allied with Juan are going to file a suit and sue Miami-Dade County?
I hope so. We're talking about human rights here. And I differ with my friend Juan over here because I don't think this president, by his character as a man and a business person in South Florida, plays chicken with open threats that he doesn't follow up
So
on.
take his threat seriously.
Well, that was what worries me the most. He threatened to deport 11 million people from this country. And he has contempt, obvious contempt for undocumented, calling us, the majority of undocumented people, criminals and rapists and drug dealers. So that also worries me on the campaign trail.
Juan, I need to ask you, you are, as we have said, the chair of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party, and the people who are allied with you in the so-called Miami Fights Back coalition are political progressives. So I feel compelled to ask, are you just a bunch of Democrats who don't like Donald Trump and don't like Carlos Jimenez because he is a Republican and kowtow to Trump?
This isn't a party issue. This is about the community. It's about 150,000 people who are undocumented, who are just working hard to provide a better life for their friends, for their family, and it's about their friends and coworkers and neighbors.
So not partisan.
It's not partisan, and I would hope the Republicans listening and independents listening also understand that this is about human rights. This is about people that are part of our community, and we should be standing up with them.
I think it's probably wise to bring up now that this week 2 state lawmakers actually filed state bills to levy consequences. I'm not sure that they're going to target it with the label sanctuary cities, but you know those bills, you're nodding, you know those bills. How would you as a commissioner respond to that?
First of all, I think Miami-Dade is very capable of addressing issues for their own jurisdiction. So I'm basically opposed to anything that preempts our ability. This needs to be vetted out in the court, not in Tallahassee. And I have to tell you, as much as Juan is concerned about the 150,000 immigrants, I'm concerned that they make up the 2.7 million residents of Miami-Dade County and want to protect human rights of all of the people there, regardless of their status or culture.
Commissioner, Broward County and Palm Beach County require that ICE provide a warrant signed by a judge or a probable cause affidavit to show that the people who have been detained are being turned over according to a legal document, a judge essentially saying, you must turn those people over. Miami-Dade County doesn't do that. Why not?
No, that I couldn't tell you, Michael, but I can tell you, unfortunately, they're, I believe, mislabeled also as sanctuary cities. They're not on the same hot seat because they didn't get so much SCAP dollars that brought it to the attention of the Department of Justice.
You just use an acronym. What is a SCAP dollar?
It's Sanctuary City for Alien. I forgot the acronym.
It's the Department of Justice program, but
Can I just, do we know what Monroe does? I hate to leave our viewers and the keys out of this. Do we know?
I'm not sure.
I know
we're going to find that out.
6 counties in Florida that are on the sanctuary city list to eventually punish. There were over 300 initially.
And there are no sanctuary cities in Florida at all.
It's a misconception, though, that Miami-Dade County is somehow not following the laws. We are following the laws. ICE detainer requests are just that. They're requests. They're not requirements. And the Department of Homeland Security, Justice, and ICE, and the courts all agree that they are just requests.
Well, it's a request, but the threat, the sword of Damocles, is hanging over the head of Miami-Dade County government if they don't. And I happen to agree with you, Commissioner, when Donald Trump makes a threat, I think he is known to, he's following through on them.
Yeah, and thank you. It really is about protecting the human rights. I can tell you, it's one thing to say this is what was in the ordinance. That's the policy. The practice, though, we have segregated the people, we have expedited them, because in our county jails is people alleged or adjudicated for criminal acts, all kinds. These people are brought in on an immigration hold, and they needed to be segregated by gender, but also the classification that brought them there. They needed a safer haven, even if it was going to be a lockup.
Commissioner Heyman, glad you could come in. We will be at the meeting Friday, and Juan Cuba, thank you, and we'll be there to hear you. You will be on the speakers list, for
hopefully.
Sure.
All right, you'll be there. If not, I'll recognize you.
You know what happens after the break? We take it all to the round table. Stay with us.
Oh, we have got such a full plate for this week's Power Roundtable, so let's get right to it with some introductions. Miami Herald reporter Doug Hanks covers Miami-Dade County government, and he recorded the video of that group getting kicked out of the commission chambers this week. Great video for a print reporter. Yolanda Cash Jackson is an attorney at the Becker and Poliakoff firm. She specializes in government law and has served as general counsel to the local chapter of the NAACP. And here's a familiar face. Glad to welcome back Mark Caputo. He is a reporter for Politico in Florida and writes the daily Politico Florida playbook, which we consume with gusto each morning.
Gusto.
Great to see you.
I'm still stuck on Sword of Damocles.
Oh, well, thanks. Let's get beyond that. Doug Hanks, you did record some really excellent video of the moment where Juan Cuba and then his followers were thrown out of that commission meeting. Do you think that was right of Chairman Bovo to do that?
It was interesting. I mean, you had the county commission chairman essentially expelling people when they said the word immigrant, undocumented. Once they hit that trigger, he would say, wait, that's off topic, get them out of here. And the commissioners who were friends of Juan Cuba, friends of the Democrats, didn't say a word, spent 45 minutes later in the meeting arguing whether or not bromeliads should be banned or sort of not bought in Miami-Dade County. So it was certainly an interesting example of what's going on in Miami-Dade County politics. Daniela Levine Cava and Xavier Suarez later in the week both issued statements sort of expressing reservations about the policy and maybe tacitly about what happened. Yeah, I think that's the most interesting thing to look at here is what are the Democrats, Sally Hayman, obviously a Democrat, but the criticism you're seeing towards the mayor, I think most people are describing as fairly tepid, not very aggressive, no one's out front on this. So will that change by Friday, or can the mayor count on pretty solid support from the county commission? So far he's doing pretty well.
I would not want to be a politician and be on the wrong side of this issue in Dade County, and to me it appears that Carlos Jimenez, Commissioner Bovo, might be on the wrong side of the issue. I'm not saying ICE shouldn't do its job. I'm just looking at the X's and O's, the blocking and tackling of politics.
So would the wrong side of the issue be politically or in the court of public opinion or legally?
Tactically. Like, oh, there's a gunner's nest shooting at us. Let's charge it. I have no idea why the mayor still decided to go forward and just capitulate like this. As we had discussed previously, Miami-Dade was not violating Donald Trump's sanctuary jurisdiction order anyway, so why they suddenly had to get all scared, weak in the knees, and wet in the pants and decide to do that, I don't know.
But I think there is a flip side to that. No mayor has more ties right now to Donald Trump than Carlos Jimenez, right? They've golfed together. They've talked when he was president-elect. Mayor Jimenez changes county policy in response to Trump. An hour later, Trump tweets, strong. Carlos Jimenez could look at this and say, hey, I'm positioning Miami-Dade County to be in the White House's favor as he pursues billions for the rail expansion and whatnot.
Well, the last I checked, the executive is not in charge of appropriating. So the idea that, oh my God, the executive is going to cut us off of getting money, in the United States Constitution as well as the Florida State Constitution, the legislative branch is in charge of that. So this whole idea like we're not going to get money for transportation if we upset Donald Trump based on some mealy-mouthed idea that will bother him, it just doesn't add up.
Well, Yolanda, the legal perspective, the government lawyer at the table.
Yeah, let's get you are the lawyer here and you deal with government. How do you see this?
I would love to believe that Mark is correct, but we are humans, and when humans have discretion and people do things that they don't necessarily like, sometimes there are consequences. So I think the fear, as Commissioner Hayman described, is real. It's a very personal thing for so many residents of Dade County. Sure. My grandparents were immigrants, if you will. So it's a very personal thing, it's a very emotional thing, and so we take it as that. And it's going to be, I believe, a very political hot potato very soon. We're talking about things being filed in Tallahassee regarding these issues. The travel ban, the discussion of immigration is just a real hard topic for a lot of people.
You know, Doug, the 2013 resolution was about the money. It really was. There was a humanitarian component to it based on the press conference where a lot of the groups that were immigrant advocates came in. But the actual resolution was about the expenditures.
I think you could push back on that. The resolution certainly had the financial component, which is why it got good support from Republicans on that commission. The resolution says blanket compliance with ICE leads to less safety for local communities. Sally Hayman presided over the press conference, so they brought the undocumented folks up there. So there was sort of that sanctuary theme out there as well, but certainly there was that financial component.
Mark, I want to acknowledge that I think it was 3 Sundays ago you sat here on the round table and you pointed out that Miami-Dade County, for years, as soon as somebody gets arrested, sends to federal authorities the photograph, the picture, the fingerprints. We have shared, the county that is, has shared information from whenever, I mean for a long time, and that therefore Miami-Dade County was not a sanctuary county, sanctuary community.
Yeah, that's what baffles me about the whole thing. And if we're going to talk about finances, what Miami-Dade and the Florida Sheriff's Association have said, looking at least one, if not 2 court rulings, is that if you, ICE, tell us, the counties, that people need to be detained because they're illegal immigrants or suspected ones, give us an affidavit. Show it to us. And now if the county detains someone who winds up being, let's say me, born in Italy, a legal resident, a U.S. citizen, and I get detained extra in jail, I'm going to sue. And guess who's on the hook for that now? County taxpayers. This could be penny wise and pound foolish.
You know, right now, this weekend, there were 6 different cities. There were reported mass ICE detentions going toward having nothing to do with sanctuary cities, but just roundups of immigrants. And we saw the report of the mother who's been here for 20 years, who is, well, by all accounts, a felon because she used a fake social security number to get a job, which was her crime, being put in a van and taken away in front of her children. Yolanda, there is fear and loathing in the immigrant communities around the country. Are we seeing anything different now than we did under the Obama administration? Or
Absolutely.
We are.
I mean, absolutely. The entire campaign was, promises were made about immigration and deportation. It is just such a passionate and real thing for so many people. Even our county commission has ties to other countries within their own families, and I think that we see it heightened by just the constant talk about how this affects people that would like to come into the United States over the last 24 months.
The fear is heightened.
I want to point out that the Broward County Commission, to its credit, passed a resolution unanimously, I think, this past week that said, sponsored by Commissioner Nan Rich, but supported by all the commissioners, saying, except maybe I think Chip Lamarca voted against it, saying we welcome immigrants. We are a welcoming community, but we are not a sanctuary community.
But let's not think it's weird that the federal government, the immigration authorities, are doing their job. I mean, in the end, if you are an undocumented immigrant, if you are here unlawfully, you should not be. And our political debate for a long time has helped a lot of us forget that. This would almost be equivalent of being shocked that DEA is doing drug raids.
So
I mean, this is what Immigration and Customs Enforcement does.
So are we just paying more attention to the practical aspects of the detention process? Was this going on prior to
I think
the
it's
fear
stepped
and
up.
loathing?
I think it has stepped up under Trump, and they are responding to that. And President Obama de-emphasized it, and Trump is emphasizing more. But in the end, ICE is doing its job. If you are not here lawfully in this country, there is no country in the world where they don't have borders, where people who are unlawfully in those countries are not supposed to leave. And I don't mean to sound heartless about it, but that is a reality.
Well, and in fact, Al Charty, excellent reporter with El Nuevo Herald and the Miami Herald, reported just this week that 7 illegal immigrants, undocumented people who had been in this country, had been deported, came back illegally and committed serious felonies, really serious crimes, have been picked up again. And I mean, frankly, I mean, that's disturbing. We don't want anybody committing assaults or whatever they're doing, aggravated battery, who are people who are not here legally. They should be deported.
On that note, we had a lot more to talk about, and we're going to do it in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Welcome back live in our studio at this hour. A robust roundtable. It usually is. This morning it is certainly that. Doug Franks, just to kind of button up the issue of this Friday meeting by the Miami-Dade Commission on sanctuary community, what do you expect to come out of that?
First thing we should note, 7 commissioners have to appear for that meeting to happen. And they've called a special meeting in the past and
there haven't been
get the quorum.
So
yeah. Let's just keep an eye on that.
And do you, any inside information on that? Do you expect that to be an issue?
I have heard not 100% confidence on that, but we'll see. I mean, that would be amazing if after not letting people speak on during the regular meeting to not hold that meeting. But anyway, listen, I think you're going to have a really, first of all, you're going to see demonstrations like we've probably never seen before in the county commission, I would imagine. A drawn out debate, and is that county commission really going to overturn what Carlos Jimenez did? I think that would be stunning.
Yolanda, in the last segment, the commissioner asked for a lawsuit, almost asked for someone to file suit, so this would go to the courts. What's your sort of view on that?
I think that the last, since the first one, how many days is this for Trump?
It seems like a year and a half.
Yeah. Anyway, the first 3 weeks,
in.
I think it's been one of the greatest demonstrations of democracy and why people want to come to the United States.
How so? Explain
Well,
that.
because the executive doesn't have the last word. He's not a dictator, and we've seen that the courts have come in and said, no, you're wrong, and then another court said, no, you're wrong, and then he says, I'm going to go further, even further. I mean, that is what America is, and that is why we fight so hard to preserve our rights. I think that in the opportunity to go to the courts is very, very important. If you think about it, the court system has provided sanctuary, and I use that loosely, for many movements. The civil rights movement wasn't resolved because people decided that they would do the right thing. The court said, you will do the right thing because this is how our Constitution works. So and I think it's a fascinating examination.
On Air Force One the other day, the president said that Monday he may well come out with a new and improved immigration order. It seems like maybe he and his administration want to run the clock out instead of letting this go to the Supreme Court, since it could be a tie with an 4 to 4 court.
The Wall Street Journal editorially said it could be a 5-3 loss because Justice Kennedy in the other Boumediene and the Guantanamo Bay case had voted against the government. Right. And so even a 4-4 tie lets the Ninth Circuit ruling stand. So the Trump administration loses there too.
Of course, this is what I truly believe, that I believe that the judiciary at the end of the day is impartial, and that's what they're supposed to be. And so it was a chance that the ruling could have come out on the other side. And sometimes when the ruling comes out on the other side, then you take the next strategy.
There's always an appeal.
There's always an appeal.
Mark, so the president is 0 for 2 in the courts, and he did say on the plane on Air Force One Friday, well, I'm going to rewrite the order. That would seem to be the politically wise route to take, wouldn't it?
Oh, why not do both? You know,
you can appeal and still rewrite the order.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump had campaigned and got elected on this idea that he's a disruptor. He's going to take on the entrenched interests and the establishment. Well, what better way to do it than to go up to the Supreme Court? He probably won't mind if he gets mowed down there, because he is trying to deliver to his base.
He likes winning. Hold on. He doesn't ever want to lose. I'm a winner.
But even when he loses, he claims he wins.
Well, that's true.
You know, in this case, this is one of those things where he wants to show to his folks, his supporters, that he's fighting their good fight. So it wouldn't surprise me if he appealed, and it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't.
Yeah. Let's, if we can, just talk for a second. I noted in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, a headline said, bombastic government style hits hurdles. And Doug, as an expert on local government, somebody who watches national government, these first 3 weeks have just been shock and awe, as somebody has said, a kind of governing. I mean, now close to, I guess, 30 executive orders. It just keeping up with it is just almost impossible.
Yeah, it's been a little exhausting, I think, for people who cover these things. I think one thing that was very interesting to watch was the one China shift. A lot of tough talk on China, sort of unprecedented tough talk. When it came down to it, under pressure, Donald Trump says, we support one China, back to the establishment where it counts. If that continues, will we see that on Obamacare? Will we see that on infrastructure spending, tax bills, et cetera?
Right.
Keep an eye on that.
You know, in the 2 minutes we have left, the Marlins, apparently Jeffrey Loria has a handshake to sell the team, and that kind of sent shockwaves through the community. But Doug, I want to go to you on this because you covered the Marlins sale and the giant tax bill that the county, Miami-Dade County taxpayers have. And so should county taxpayers fear this sale?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the obligation is the obligation to pay the debt back on the stadium. We subsidize Marlins Park, we subsidize the Heat Arena. We soon will subsidize Dolphin Stadium once that deal kicks in if they have enough big events.
And the Homestead track is subsidized by
Homestead track
tourists.
and
Thank God we're making these rich people richer, you know, so that they can pay rich people lots of money to stay rich.
Well, the issue, I talked to Norman Brayman this week in my reporting, and he says, I don't blame Jeffrey Loria. He always was going to sell the club at some point. He said, I blame the commissioners who approved this deal. He says they're the ones who should be held accountable because the county, if Loria waits until March 2018, none of the profits of the sale will go to the county. But isn't that true?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the timing. I think it's a little bit later. But the county, the CFO told me it's really complicated. If this happens, we'll have people figure this out. Right. I think one thing we need to ask is Miami going to support a professional baseball team or not? And so far, they've sort of blamed Loria. If it gets sold, and who knows who the new owner is going to be, it could be a connection to Trump, but whatnot. Is Miami going to show up and watch professional baseball?
Do they show up now?
Well,
21,000
per game.
Make it cheaper, for God's sakes, to begin with. I just think the Miami Hurricanes should be back there. I'd blow the whole thing up and rebuild the old Orange Bowl, but that's just me.
On that note, thanks so much for a
Thank
great
you all.
roundtable this morning. After the break, state officials go on a listening tour for medical marijuana, and they get an earful at a workshop in Fort Lauderdale. Stay tuned. The Florida Department of Health is staging a road trip around the state for input on writing medical marijuana rules.
And one of the 5 workshops was held this week in Fort Lauderdale, and they got an earful. Our Bob Norman was there.
We believe in competition. We don't want the licenses restricted.
An overflow crowd put state officials on notice during a state workshop on legalizing medical cannabis, with many decrying the current plan to restrict the business to just 7 license holders across the state.
Amendment 2 should not be limited to 7 families.
They say that will lead to lower quality and higher prices.
Get rid of this state-sponsored cartel. This is the United States of America, and we like our markets the same way we like our press and our speech, free and open.
Attendees told their stories and urged officials like Christian Bax, the director of the State Office of Compassionate Use, to end what they say are onerous regulations that tie the hands of doctors and restrict access to patients who need the medicine. Here's former state senator Eleanor Sobel.
You have to wait 90 days till you get help with a medical condition that is truly life-threatening and you are living in constant pain.
A jury ruled that Broward resident Jesse Teplicki needs marijuana for his medical condition, anorexia, but that may not fall under the new state law.
My condition doesn't fall under Amendment 2. I am not a criminal. I'm a father of 3. I deserve a right to access to medication at a proper price.
Shouldn't just be a formality where comments are made and people stand up and talk and nothing gets done. And then 2 years later, people are still waiting for their medicine.
In Fort Lauderdale, Bob Norman, Local 10 News.
Bob, thanks. State lawmakers are going to decide regulations for medical marijuana during the legislative session. It begins next month.
And when we come back, free press demanding to be set free. It was a defining moment as Haiti's new president took office this week. Stay tuned.
Here is a live look now from our Miami Tower Cam. Another day in paradise.
There's Weather Authority meteorologist Erica Delgado with the Sunday forecast. Hi, Erica.
Hi, Glenna. You're absolutely right. It is another day in paradise. As you can see outside of our Tower Cam right now in Hollywood, we saw some cloud cover early this morning, but that has now pushed out towards the west and out towards the south, leaving for some blue skies and everyone taking advantage of the beautiful Sunday that we have in store for us. It's not just that, though. Temperatures are very comfortable. We're in the mid to upper 70s. Some areas already hitting 80 degrees. degrees. Kendall and Pembroke Pines, that goes for you. Miami, 76 degrees and 78 degrees right now in the Fort Lauderdale area. There's the batch of clouds that moved through earlier, leaving for some cloudy skies that kind of scared us, right? But no, it burned off, and as you can see, things are looking much nicer across much of Fort Lauderdale and down into Miami. So for your forecast for your Sunday fun day, highs will be topping at around 80 degrees, a mix of sun and clouds. Remember, with that onshore flow, we can't rule out an isolated sprinkle at best, but I think that the rest of the day will be sunny. As far as the next few days are concerned, warming trend back in the forecast. Low 80s to start the work week. Temperatures overnight will still feel very comfortable in the mid 60s as you're heading out early in the morning, back to school and back to work tomorrow morning. Valentine's Day looking a little warmer, low 80s, an isolated threat of a shower, but it's not till Wednesday, Thursday will things really begin to warm up with a cold front Thursday, leaving us a chance of a shower, maybe even a thunderstorm. But of course, behind that cold front, we'll see temperatures back to where we should be for this time of year. Glenna.
Erica, thank you. Notes from the road this week, and one incredible moment among many during the inauguration of Haiti's democratically elected president this week. The swearing in of President Jovenel Moïse is seen as a new beginning, but an uncertain new beginning for a country so important to so many in our community, a country mired in confusion and corruption and almost 2 years of political limbo. Watch what happened when journalists at the inauguration to document that new beginning found themselves separated by a glass partition. It was kind of a revolt, a peaceful and empowering one. Reporters and photojournalists spontaneously and collectively challenging their new government to put its money where its mouth is. What you can't see in this frame is one of the reporters pressing her pad to the window on which she had written in French, "There is no democracy without a free press." And then something incredible happened. It actually worked. Those in charge opened the door and unleashed this crowd of reporters and photographers freely into the auditorium. And check it out, in the absence of a plan or any logistics, it did get a little crazy, but crazy in the sense of crowd and motion. And dozens of journalists were free to cover Haiti's style of democracy in action. It was, if not the first, then one of the first decisions of the new Moïse administration, and it was a decision in the right direction. Any reporter who's worked in Haiti knows how difficult it is to confirm factual information and unearth records, public or otherwise, that are the tools for effective and responsible reporting. Hopefully, Moïse will move to ensure resources for a free and effective press in Haiti, along with the economic, security, and social infrastructures Haitian citizens need and deserve. So what do you think about that or anything? We invite you to weigh in on any topic you like.
And to President Moïse, I say bonne chance. You can reach us on email, Facebook, Twitter, any of those addresses. Remember, stay informed, get involved.
A great Sunday.
This is a Local 10 editorial with WPLG President Bert Medina.
We're finally hearing a plan for the express lanes that make sense. Get rid of them. Florida State Senator Frank Artiles has introduced a bill to eliminate express lanes on Florida highways. Local 10 couldn't agree more. We have brought you countless stories on the safety issues of lane diving accidents. And while traffic engineers are adding stronger plastic poles to reduce that problem, it doesn't address the fundamental issue. Express lanes are making traffic worse, not better. The express lanes have simply taken away lanes from the vast number of drivers cramming more cars into the remaining lanes. These express lanes are all about making money, not about making our commute better. It doesn't take a traffic engineer to tell us I-95 is a mess virtually all hours of the day. And things have gotten even worse since the express lanes were added. The system is broken, and this failed experiment needs to end. If you agree with us, call your state representative or senator, or even better, both. We have made it easy for you. Go to local10.com to get the number for your representative in Tallahassee. And while at local10.com, add your name to the list of Floridians who have had enough. We will see that that petition gets delivered to your lawmakers. As always, this is just the beginning of the conversation. Let's continue it on local10.com.
This has been a